Let's move to Afghanistan, where the Taliban leaders are institutionalizing large-scale and systematic gender-based discrimination and violence against women and girls. The world is deeply troubled by the harsh manner with which the de facto authorities have responded to Afghan women and girls claiming their fundamental rights, with reports of peaceful protesters having been often beaten. Take a look.
Until a few months ago, Afghanistan's own national flag was waving in the sky. But now, the Taliban is rebranding the war-torn country with its white flags. The country is no longer a republic, it's the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. The de facto rulers want to make sure that nobody can forget who is in charge now. With Taliban seizing power, the human rights situation in the country deteriorated drastically, especially for women and girls. Despite the Taliban's claim that they had changed their policies on women's participation in society, this was proved to be false. Women have been excluded from public life with no opportunity for education, unable to join the workforce, and no access to health care unless accompanied by a man. This has put in effect gender apartheid. The UN agencies and the international community have also raised concern over the situation. Recently, EU Parliament hosted Afghan Women Days to address and cast light on the extremely worrying situation of women in Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan, over the last 2 decades, girls and women gained increased access to their rights to education and to full and productive roles in society. Today, sadly, these same women and girls have had these hopes cruelly taken away from them once more. The rollbacks on rights to employment, education, freedom of movement, and enjoyment of dignity and freedom from violence have been exacerbated by an economic situation that threatens levels of famine and poverty on an unfathomable scale. Without full participation in public life, women's access to essential services will be even further curtailed. The women of Afghanistan, as well as the countries of the region and beyond, are yearning for stability.
A few days ago, some Taliban leaders traveled first class on a plane specially chartered by the Norwegian government to Oslo for meetings with Western officials and members of Afghan civil society. The talks were focused on Afghanistan's humanitarian crisis, but the meeting was also a part of new diplomatic efforts to seek international recognition. Women activists who have been facing intimidation by the Taliban after staging small and scattered protests are outraged by the diplomatic efforts. They are feeling betrayed as Western countries have started laying red carpets for the Taliban when the latter group has failed to live up to its promise. People in the country are being denied their rights. Some of the women's rights activists are still missing in the country. And the UN Human Rights Office has shown concern over the continued disappearance of people who were abducted in connection with recent women's rights protests.
When I and many of other my fellow Afghans, when we are trying to come to the Europe, we have to fill a form and we have to say that I have not been a terrorist, I have not been trained in a terrorist camp, I have not participated in acts of genocide and war crimes, and I have not been known by any other name. My question is that when the delegates of the Taliban came to Oslo, what did they write in their visa form? What did they write in their visa application? And I really want an answer now from the members of the parliament, because this is a disgrace to see that we as human rights defenders, we have to answer all those questions, but then you are extending a red carpet for a group that is known not only for their terrorist activities, not only known for their being a gender apartheid regime, but at the same time, more than half of their cabinet members on the UN terrorist sanction list.
Afghanistan has gone back to a past it didn't miss. The Taliban have increasingly cracked down on dissent, and local journalists have been beaten and intimidated while covering protests. Recently, two reporters, Waris Hasrat and Aslam Hijab, were also detained by the Taliban. Both of them were later released after mass outrage. The international community is waking up to the harsh truth once again. It has no clear strategy for dealing with the Islamists and the new reality emerging in Afghanistan. The people of Afghanistan do not deserve this.